The cornerstone for Abraham Lincoln High School was laid in 1948. Since then, more than 14,000 teenagers have passed through its portals to the tune of pomp and circumstance and to the outside world. But the school itself is no longer a teenager. Abe has come of age. Although confined to 2 floors, the building is gigantic by most inner-city school standards. But Lincoln, like most city high schools, has never been big enough. Back in the 40s, experts said it would accommodate 3,200 pupils. Since it opened, it has had annual student populations of closer to 4,000. When 2 newer schools, Northeast and George Washington, opened, it was thought students would be siphoned off to these schools. And some were. But today, there are still 4,400 students at Lincoln, 1,200 more than the place was designed to hold. Unlike most senior high schools, Lincoln has 8th grade in addition to 9th through 12th. And space and time for extracurricular activities are an added burden to students and teachers. For assembly programs, the student body is divided into thirds and even dismissed from the auditorium in sections to avoid traffic jams in the hallways. Ramps, rather than stairways, make the going easier. In recent years, they've been designated for one-way foot traffic. Traffic police, once a voluntary chore of student hall guards, now is the job of non-teaching assistants.
All right, back up again. All the way up. Let's go.
Lincoln has a new principal this term, Bernard Rafferty, who also is president of the Principals Association. After 20 years in the city schools, this is his first command of a senior high school. Steve Woljan is the current Student Association president, the result of school-wide elections. Woljan is a little different from his predecessors. He's been instrumental in seeking the school board's agreement to a student Bill of Rights.
Well, let's talk about the Lincoln students that I've met in the last few weeks. They want to be involved not only in their own world, but they want to be involved in the world of the future. For example, here at school, they've been meeting with regular 7:30 in the morning, little breakfast meetings, where we come in and discuss problems which are immediate, some which are plans for the future. Some of these youngsters realize that by the time we consummate their ideas, they will long since have been in college or in the world of work. Nevertheless, they're interested in the educational system of the future.
In the past few years, students have become more aware of their rights, and they are now being given the chance to operate in a model democratic government, where before they were doing things where they weren't really relevant to a government, more of some type of club where you would give out flowers and candy and things of that sort.
One of the things, they want to revise the Student Council or Student Association Constitution. It has not been revised for the last 15 or 16 years. Some of the clauses in they feel are restrictive. For example, there's a dues requirement. They compared it to the poll tax, which I think is a very good analogy.
If you don't know what's happening in Jordan, read your newspapers, watch your newsreels. All right, let's go back to the cradle of the Middle East. Why does the author refer to it as...
Currently, there are 175 teachers at Lincoln providing the instruction for academic, commercial, vocational, and industrial arts, as well as general curriculum. Many of them have been here for most of Lincoln's 20 years of educational life, and they've noticed some changes in education and in faculty.
I think the change is mostly in me and not in the students. Students are pretty much the same as they were when I first came here. I find, however, that I'm dealing now more with, I'm in the history department, and rather than dealing with the factual matter of the curriculum, I'm sort of compelled, forced by many of the students, by their interest and concern for the current issues, I'm forced almost to deal with the concepts, the crucial concepts that are facing our nation and facing us today, more so than ever in the past.
Well, one of the most noticeable things to me, I would say, is the kind of teacher that was here when I arrived back in '55. I would say almost everybody in my department, which is English, was a person of real background, had quite a bit of educational background. Most of them had master's degrees. And I would say that's true of almost every department in the school. And since that time, so many of them going on to higher jobs, and that's the big contradiction, I think, in education, that all the people who are really terrific in the classroom have been going out of the classroom because it seems like the only way a person can move anywhere in the system is out of the classroom. The quality is just not as good as it was.
In physics, which is my field, about 50 or 60% of the material which was taught 15 years ago is either not taught at all or skimmed over, because we have to place a much greater emphasis on areas, for example, nuclear reactions, atomic structure, which were more or less in their infancy at the time when I started, and to keep up and to keep the kids on the ball and to be prepared for college.
I think the biggest change in the math department took place with Sputnik being launched. We had what we called a traditional program in mathematics, and all of a sudden we found ourselves behind the Russians, and there was a tremendous change in attitude. We now have, as part of our curriculum, a course in calculus in the 12th grade, which was non-existent when I got here.
In our department, the commercial department, we've changed quite a bit because business has changed, and we've had to pick up automation, electronic data processing, and so forth. The teachers had to follow in-service courses and take outside training in order to keep up with this, because our students who leave the commercial department are ready to go into business, and we have to keep them up with the latest things in business.
Almost since it opened, Lincoln's extracurricular activities have included musical aggregations of every size and composition. Junior and senior bands, orchestras, choirs, and the school's own dance band, known as the Lincolnaires, provide practical musical instruction through practice and on-stage and on-field performance. But every year, there's a new batch of musicians to be tuned into a group that plays together and stays together.
Yell at Canner? Were you around here when I used to yell at Canner? What did I tell him about drumming in a dance band? That you can't stick entirely to the music because there's nothing there. The drummer has to be creative. He's got to put little fill-ins here and there. He's got to know the arrangement. He's got to listen for it. Even when he doesn't know, he should be able to feel it. Right? See? The drummer drives the band, or...
which take only students who pass strict entrance exams, Lincoln has always taken just about anybody. And with these kids, it has won honors and scholarship and on the playing fields year after year. But over the years, veteran teachers have noticed some changes in student attitudes and in school spirit.
The general attitude of the students has changed a little bit. I remember when I first came here, there used to be quite a boost for the football players, the football teams, the track teams, and so forth. And the high school hero or the All-American boy was part of the feeling for everyone in the school. The way it is now, I don't believe there's 100 kids in the school that know who's on the football team. Now they seem to prize not what a fella can do, but what he has. They know everyone who has a hot car or the motorcycle, but they don't know the great athletes or the good athletes in the school. That's one noticeable thing that I have observed.
The basic change in kids, I think, is a much greater aura of sophistication in non-instructional matters. They are, I think, more mature as far as their knowledge of what's going on in the world today than they were 15 years ago. I simply cannot use the same jokes anymore. They don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know the songs that I'm referring to, and I realize that age is advancing.
The basic change I've noticed in the 10 years that I've been at Lincoln has been one of confusion. The students are much more confused today in many respects. They don't know what jobs they're planning for. They don't know what their interests are today or what they're going to be. 10 years ago, the students came in and they knew they were going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a bookkeeper. Today, many of them are being trained for jobs that may not exist by the time they graduate. Others are being trained in fields where we don't know if the field will be there or they're being trained for jobs that don't exist yet. So the students have been very confused as to vocational choice. They are confused because of the rapid change in the world today, and they really don't know what they want to do or how they want to do it.
One confused Lincoln student killed himself earlier this year, allegedly while under the influence of LSD. Drug abuse at Lincoln, as at all high schools in the city, has become a serious problem recently. Here, administrators, faculty, and students don't try to pretend it doesn't exist. They fight it with police stakeout teams and undercover agents when necessary. This film was shot in the Lincoln parking lot recently as plainclothesmen armed with a search warrant for a senior's beige automobile made their move. We purposely did not film the suspect's face because that's not important. Larry here was an Eagle Scout and son of a former police lieutenant. He could have been anybody's son in any high school in Philadelphia. In his car, police found a plastic jar containing about 600 amphetamines, alias speed, which sell illicitly at a cost of $5 for $1. If the following scene resembles one from Dragnet, it's not. This was the real thing.
Not too bad. Here?
It's nice enough.
What's the label first?
How many's in there? 600?
I don't know about that. Sound like the green one's rebel passes off.
I hope take a look and do the rest.
Larry, you're under arrest for illegal possession of dangerous drugs.
I'm going to warn you, constitutional rights.
You have a right to keep quiet and do not have to say anything at all. You understand that anything you say can and will be used against you. Do you want to remain silent?
I've already talked to you.
Do you understand you have a right to talk with the lawyer before we ask you any questions? Do you understand that if you can't afford to hire a lawyer and you want one, we will not ask you any questions until a lawyer is appointed for you free of charge? Do you want either to talk with a lawyer at this time or to have a lawyer with you while we ask you questions? No? Are you willing to answer questions of your own free will without force or fear, without any threats or promises having been made to you?
Yeah.
All right. Are there any more drugs in the car?
No.
You're going to be charged with illegal possession of dangerous drugs, Larry.
There was no grass around Lincoln when it opened in 1950, just mud. Some of the sidewalks weren't in yet. But Charles H. Williams was. Williams retired as principal here last term. He'd been a high school principal longer than anyone in the history of Philadelphia's public schools, 28 years. And last May 28th, students, faculty, and alumni thanked Williams for his 2 decades at Lincoln with gifts large and small.
Give you something of great sentimental value to us and to you. And we would like you to accept our mascot, the penguin. There goes the card. We would like to accept our mascot, the penguin, with lots of love and just constant prayers for your happiness.
We have now decided that we would like to change the name Lincoln Auditorium to Williams Hall. And from this point on, from now on, Lincoln High School Auditorium will be Williams Hall. If you could please turn around in the back of the auditorium, directly beneath the clock, there's a plaque that reads to that effect that Williams Hall is now dedicated in honor of Mr. Charles H. Williams on May 28th.
Nothing in my life matches this or comes close. And I'm sure that nothing else ever will. I shall treasure the gifts you've given me, but most of all, I shall treasure the memory of this morning and many other mornings in the 20 and a half years of my principalship here.